The spectre of that war seems to be moving on from Europe. It's been a tense couple of months. Military build-ups, threats, counter-threats, but finally cooler heads have prevailed, or so it seems at the moment. 10,000 Russian troops have been withdrawn from the Ukraine border. They had been camping there for months, holding drills, testing artillery, basically preparing for war. Western intelligence reports said Russia would attack in early 2022, but Moscow had always denied this version. They said that this was a normal military deployment. So why are the troops returning now? Because Russia says the drills are over. 10,000 soldiers will return to their permanent deployments. If true, this is good news. But the standoff, we can tell you, is not over yet. Reports say 100,000 Russian troops are still camping near the border, plus 75,000 are on standby. So this withdrawal of 10,000 is a tiny portion of Russia's buildup. The threat of war has not disappeared. So what is Russian President Vladimir Putin thinking? Is this a sign of goodwill ahead of talks, or is he trying to avoid immediate sanctions? Well, Putin has already played his hand in Ukraine. He does not want bloodshed. It's amply clear. He wants influence. He wants to keep the NATO away from his backyard. Last week, we told you about President Putin's wish list. No NATO membership for Ukraine, no NATO deployments in Eastern Europe. These were his big demands, two demands. And what was NATO's response? A big no. The NATO chief says Ukraine has the right to choose its own path. So the first request is a non-starter. Nonetheless, they have agreed to talks. In fact, the proposal has already been sent. NATO has invited Russia to a security summit on the 12th of January. Moscow says it is considering this proposal. And this is all good news. The proposed talks, the partial troop withdrawal, all of it is good. Clearly, the temperatures are cooling. But what if the talks fail? Because let's face it, that's a real possibility. NATO has already rejected Russia's demands. Washington is talking about massive sanctions. So these talks are just a stopgap, a temporary fix for the West. If they fail, we're back to square one or worse. NATO has already deployed multinational battalions in Eastern Europe. The next step could be long-range artillery. And this is a deal breaker for Vladimir Putin. Remember, if NATO sends missiles to Ukraine, Russia would be vulnerable. They could hit Moscow in minutes. President Putin calls this his red line. No NATO troops, no NATO missiles in Ukraine. That's the red line for Russia. But what if the West crosses that line? What happens then? It could kick off an arms race. Moscow is threatening to deploy nuclear weapons in Europe. They also tested a hypersonic missile last week. It's called the Zircon system. These missiles can travel 9 times faster than sound. Plus, they have a 1,000-kilometer range. President Putin claims this missile is unrivaled. Even the US has not perfected hypersonic technology. So coming back to our first question, what is Russian President Vladimir Putin thinking? What does he want? He's pulling back 10,000 soldiers. At the same time, he's testing cutting-edge missiles. Is there any method to this madness? Putin realizes that his demands are unlikely to be met. Most of his security guarantees are a non-starter, so he wants to keep applying pressure, keep the spectre of war alive. At the same time, invasion is not really an option for him. This Ukraine, remember, is not the Ukraine of 2014. Any attack will be met with stiff resistance. There will be lives lost on both sides, plus there will be sanctions. President Putin can sell an aggressive foreign policy to his people. In fact, the Russian people love it. What he cannot sell is this: the death of Russian soldiers and crippling Western sanctions. So marching into war is not an option for Moscow. And NATO understands this, hence the outright rejection of Putin's demands. The West is hoping for a de-escalation without giving up too much. The question is, will Russia agree? Only the new year will tell us. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.